Good afternoon, and welcome to the January regular meeting of the Calgary Police Commission. I call this meeting to order and ask that everyone ensure your microphones are muted until you need to speak. My name is Amtul Siddiqui, and I'm the chair of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kelly Ogle, Sean Cornett, Sue Mallon, Sheree Nyson-Jordan, Samuel Hope, Robert Tenge, Ayo Adidaran, Aaron Noga, Marcia Hansen, and Councillors Jennifer Wyness and Terry Wong. Today's Calgary Police Service representatives are led by Chief Constable Mark Neufeld. On his behalf, Superintendent Rashid, could you please introduce those you expect to speak during today's meeting?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. I'd like to introduce on behalf of Chief Neufeld, from my left to right, Chief People Officer Kim Armstrong, Senior Finance Officer Sabina Lokantz, Deputy Chief Chad Toffick, of course, Chief Mark Neufeld, Deputy Chief Katie McClellan, Deputy Chief Corey Daly, Deputy Chief Raj Gill, Executive Director Catherine Murphy, and Acting Director Rebecca Davidson. We also have Director Michael Nunn from our Public Affairs team online. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. For those not familiar with our role, our commission is a body of 10 community members and 2 city councillors appointed by City Council and the Government of Alberta. We provide independent citizen governance and oversight of the Calgary Police Service on behalf of all Calgarians. To protect the political neutrality of the police, Alberta's Police Act requires that the police chief report directly to us instead of elected officials. We provide direction to the police through the chief, police policies, monitoring the police complaint process, and approval of how the police budget is spent. Today is one of 8 regular meetings we have each year to openly discuss police governance and oversight matters with the service's leadership and to hear from the public. We also have several private monthly committee meetings where commissioners work more directly with the service on various matters that cannot be discussed publicly. Our commission is meeting today on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations. It's also home to Tsuut'ina First Nation and the ERA Nakota people of the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney First Nations. These are the people who made a treaty with the Crown, forming Treaty 7 territory. Calgary is also homeland to the Otipemisiwak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta. Our commission is committed to doing our part to address the inequity and intergenerational trauma caused by past and current wrongs, to support reconciliation with all Indigenous people who share this land with us. Our commission also condemns racism and prejudice in all forms and is committed to being anti-racist. As we start our meeting, allow me to provide a brief overview of the format for those joining us for the first time. The public session of this meeting is being live streamed, and a recording will be posted online so we can make it available to those unable to attend. There will be several presentations from the Calgary Police Service, commission members, and commission staff. Commissioners will have the chance to ask questions or make comments after each one. Once we have completed these presentations, we will move to the public participation portion of the meeting. Those who are registered to speak will then be called on by name and will have a chance to either ask a question or make a presentation for our consideration. Following the public participation, we will close the public meeting with the chief and I taking questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to observe the media availability, but only media professionals can participate. To start our meeting, I will ask for the agenda to be approved. Does any member of the commission wish to request an amendment to the agenda? Hearing none, can a commissioner please move to accept the agenda? Thank you, Commissioner Tenge and Commissioner Adidaran. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. I will now call for declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest from the commissioners. Hearing no declarations, I will now ask for the approval of the consent agenda. For those viewing today's meeting, the consent agenda is a list of routine items and reports that all commissioners agree that can be accepted without more discussion or a separate vote. Does any member of the commission wish to request an item on the consent agenda be brought forward for discussion? Hearing none, I declare both the agenda and consent agenda approved. I want to open my chair's report today by wishing everyone in Calgary's Asian and South Asian communities a happy Lunar New Year. May the coming year bring you peace and prosperity. And I also would like to call upon Commissioner Wong to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair, Chief, members of the service, members of the Commission. Today is Chinese Lunar New Year, and it's a celebration celebrated across the globe, and particularly the Chinese community in Calgary here. It's a celebration of the Year of the Snake, and the Year of the Snake is one that we recognize as intelligence, perseverance, and strategy are the hallmarks of the Year of the Snake. When I take a look around the table today, that is exactly what we are recognizing, acknowledging both in the Commission and our service: intelligence, perseverance, and strategy. In my opportunity to speak to many different communities over the past week and upcoming weeks, the key message I've been trying to get across to everybody is that the world is facing global conflict. We're recognizing that there's shifting changes in North American politics, recognizing that there are local conflicts, and there are also conflicts in our streets and our homes. The one message I ask for everybody to recognize for 2025 is the word unity. Unity is what's most important to bring our community, our people, and our world together. So with that, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong, for that. I also want to wish a belated Happy New Year to all Calgarians and Merry Christmas to those in our city who celebrated Orthodox Christmas earlier this month. Our commission enjoyed a break during December, but we're still pleased to help welcome a new batch of police officers at the graduation of Class 260. It's encouraging to see the quality of new officers coming into the service, and we're all grateful to the graduates for choosing to serve in this way. Several of our commissioners also had the opportunity to visit the service's arrest processing section, where people are held in custody prior to a bail hearing. The tour gave us insights into the ways that the service is working hard to address criminal activity while also providing compassionate care to those in custody, many of whom are dealing with addictions, mental health concerns, and other vulnerabilities. At the beginning of January, I and several other commissioners joined our colleagues across Canada, both virtually and in person, for the Canadian Association of Police Governance Summit. The summit looked at important issues facing police governance in our country and was an opportunity for us to learn from and collaborate with our peers. This month, our commission also launched a new committee structure with 4 standing committees that will help us more directly focus on our priorities: the Policing Services Committee, Police Personnel and Culture Committee, Finance, Audit and Infrastructure Committee, and Executive Committee all now meet between our regular meetings to move work forward in those areas. Finally, we are continuing to work on the workplace audit and review that was promised last May. A steering committee has been working through the procurement process to hire an external firm to independently conduct this review. This important work has admittedly been moving far slower than what we wanted or anticipated. However, it remains a priority for our commission, and we are confident that there will be more to share on this work in the near future. To close my report, I want to take a moment to thank the members of the Calgary Police Service for their work these past 2 months. There are a few things I want to highlight that the service has delivered on the priorities of Calgarians. Investigators late in November connected 2 sexual assaults that occurred on transit and worked to identify and charge the person believed to be responsible. The effort put into investigating these cases shows the commitment that the service has to stopping crime on the transit system. Charges were also laid in a child pornography investigation after an employee at a computer repair shop called police to report what was found on a customer's computer. This case showed the important partnership between the police and the community, as well as we all need to work together to keep our community safe. Significant work also occurred to address robberies and thefts. The robbery unit charged a man in connection with 21 robberies in Calgary and Edmonton. 5 teenagers were also charged in several violent robberies, and the auto theft team laid 115 charges, including firearm charges, through proactive efforts to stop prolific offenders. Officers in the downtown core also partnered with the City of Calgary peace officers to curb bike thefts. The operation resulted in 2 criminal charges, 64 warrants being executed, and 15 summons being issued. In another case, a quick response by patrol officers and a coordinated effort across the service helped bring charges in a violent altercation outside the Portico Lounge that claimed the life of 1 man. Finally, I want to congratulate Superintendent Asif Rashid, and Inspector Avril McLean for being recognized this past month by the Immigrant Outreach Society for their community engagement and advocacy effort. The awards show that the community is noticing the efforts of the service to build relationships and support all various cultural groups that call Calgary home. Thank you to everyone involved in these cases, and thank you to the entire service for all the other work that was done this past month to keep Calgarians safe. It is noticed and appreciated. With that, I will end my chair's report and move us on to our presentations from the Calgary Police Service. We are starting with an update on the service's progress towards implementing 65 recommendations made by retired Chief Justice Wittman in 2018 around police use of force. The service has previously reported several times on this work, and we received the last report in 2022. At that time, all but 9 recommendations had been implemented. Our commission asked the service to provide an update today on those 9 remaining recommendations. Chief Neufeld, please go ahead and introduce your presenters.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for acknowledging the good work done by so many members across the various areas of the service. Just as you say, this is an update on the Wittman report. This is looking at the 9, as you say, recommendations that had not been implemented. And I will turn it over to Chief People Officer Armstrong to introduce the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. As stated, this report is following up on a motion to provide a progress update on the 9 Wittman recommendations that are still in progress and not fully implemented as of the CPC meeting in 2022. Since 2022, there's been a focus on service-wide continuous improvement in our approach to all related training. We've also completed equipment rollouts, reviewed our use of force reporting, and incorporated learnings for the frontline and overall integration of de-escalation into all of our training. Additionally, considerable work has been done with respect to our response to people in crisis, including partnerships we have in place with Recovery Alberta, Alpha House, Calgary 911, Distress Center Calgary, and others, which directly align with the recommendations. Online, we have Executive Director Rory Thompson, Inspector Jerry Murtaugh, and present in the room, we have Business Strategist Carrie Rack, all of whom are here to support answering any questions you may have about this report. Thank you.
Sorry, Chief People, is there a People Officer? Is there a presentation or just go straight to questions?
Straight to questions.
Okay, my apologies. Commission members, questions? Commissioner Nice and Jordan, please.
Thanks very much for the report. I just have one question, and it relates to number 20, the recommendation number 20, which is the requirement for all frontline patrol officers to have a CEW or conducted energy weapon. Can you identify how many were short? Because one of the responses is that they are prioritized, but we don't have enough for everybody. So what's the delta amount that we're missing?
Inspector Murtaugh, did you hear the question?
I did, CPO. All frontline officers have access to a CW on every shift.
So that's not what the report says. It actually says that there may be occasions when there are more officers than CEWs. So, and then it's prioritized. So I just wanted to know if you've got it, if you don't, what the difference is. Thanks.
So I think what's alluding to in there, and I'll maybe hand it over in a second to strategist Carrie Rack to explain what she meant by that, because she was the author of it. But to build on what Inspector Murtaugh says, every single frontline member, i.e. patrol, a member of Bureau of Community Policing, has a CEW. Prior to going out on their shift, they will go to the commissioners to sign out that CEW. I believe where that's coming from there is that we also have members, for example, investigators, who at times need to go out into community to conduct their duties. At such time, if they require CEWs, they will go to a pool of CEWs to sign one out. So I suspect that that's what the language in the report is alluding to. But Kerry, do you want to build on or even rectify if I've not picked up?
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're just right there, what you were just saying. So when we did our audit, you're correct in assuming that all officers do take a CEW with them, but that there could be occasions, maybe like a pay duty, for example, or like you said, an investigative officer that might go out and there may not be enough. So it's not in policy that the officer take the CEW. The policy states that officers will take all of the equipment that is available to them at the time. So if it is available, they do take it. We did find in practice that officers are taking the CEW with them, but that it's not in policy because there could be those rare occasions like a pay duty or something like that where there wouldn't be one available. But they're few and far between. And I don't know if Deputy Gill or the chief wants to.
I think you said it, Kerry. From a frontline policing perspective, all of our members are trained in CEW and they all have CEW on there. It might be when we have a surge capacity that additional officers are required to go to attend that they may not. But I'm not familiar with any officers right now that are deployed that do not have a CEW. I believe they all have CEWs.
So can I ask a follow-up? So if it's not 100% and not in policy, what's to prohibit, or somebody says, oh, I left it at the office, and then it results in an escalation of force that you might not have otherwise done if you had bothered to go and get it signed out. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's a bit of a disconnect. We need to get it into policy in some way, shape, or form. Thanks.
It's also, they're not assigned in the same way that, say, a firearm would be assigned, right? So they're signed out by each officer. And what we did find when we did our audit at the time was that people do. They are signing them out. They want to take as much use of force equipment as they can when they go on patrol. They want to have that CEW available to them. So the chances of them just saying, no, I don't want to, I think are pretty slim because they want to have that option.
I think maybe I would just add that the reason why we don't issue them per officer is because, of course, officers are off and we would need basically 4 times as many as we would at any regular time. So for the most part, I think it would be very rare that an officer wouldn't have a CEW. But still, I think the risk would be low in the case that one didn't somewhere along the way, because most, and you wouldn't be able to generalize to every type of use of force situation, but a lot of the cases like mental health calls and stuff like that, we don't send one officer to those anyway. So somebody there would have a CEW. So at the end of the day, I think it'd be very rare that you would have a call that you wouldn't have access to less lethal as well as lethal force options there. The whole gamut is always there.
Commissioner Cornett.
Hey there, I have a kind of a general question about Wittman, and it's been 6 years and 85 recommendations. So many have been put in place, and there's sort of the instruction and the culture piece. Equipment is another piece, lots of different things. So over the years, is there one area that has really helped bring those numbers down? Because the numbers have really improved over time. And that's at the time when, the city of Calgary is seeing more disruption and difficult situations to handle. So is there anything of all of these recommendations or something that you really focus on that's actually really made that difference, that you would make sure that was sort of high and the best thing, or you want to pursue that even more? So where's the emphasis, I guess, is what I'm asking about.
I'd maybe start with one, Rory, and then I'd look to you and Jerry. But one thing that I think Commissioner Cornett, that's been a game changer for sure, has been the update in the policy around Code 600, Code 700, so vehicle-based tactics. The spike in officer-involved shootings that we saw back leading up to the direction of the Wittman report, a lot of that was around vehicles and vehicle interventions. And so our Code 600 or pursuit policy had been open and under review for a long period of time. There was a change there that actually brought in vehicle-based tactics and a lot of training for our members. And so now, night after night, we see unbelievably good, safe, tactical situations where those situations are dealt with and addressed, and they're not leading to the same outcomes that they did before. So if I think there's a number of things in there that were super valuable. But if I had to pick one that was a game changer, for me, it would be vehicle-based tactics and the training around dealing with vehicles and how you're dealing and moving in and around vehicles are not yet secure.
Chief, I'll just add a couple of points there. I think one of the biggest things that is now our anchor that we evolve everything from, even all the way through to continuous improvement, is the use of force policy that was unveiled. A long time in the making, but that now is the root of everything we do. As well as recently, and I think it was just before Christmas, we talked about a commission around the framework which was created. Just as a reminder, the key emphasis on the framework was all about de-escalation at every single stage, and also that 360 assessment throughout as well. And I can also inform you that that framework has now been approved at the provincial level as well. And so that is obviously allowing us that consistency with our partners across the province as well. I'll hand over to Inspector Mark in a second, but I'll just mention one other thing that I think is massive is that frontline enhancement of capability. So now we have the PACs, the MRT that are patrolling alongside our officers and supporting our officers, which specific to crisis intervention is having a big impact in allowing our officers that clinician medical support that, again, we focus on behaviours where those experts in those fields allow our officers to be supported in that way.
The only other piece I'd add is that de-escalation and strategic communications is threaded throughout our 27-week recruit program, from the academics to firearms to officer safety. But there is, as the chief said as well, our tactics are improving. So in 7 years, there's definitely been an improvement in not just vehicle-based tactics, but command and control. That makes a big difference to the way we're deploying, but also that we have time to talk, and that framework is definitely a great addition.
Commissioner, I do think overall we are now in a position where we're all about that continuous improvement. In fact, this report was hard to write because we're just in a completely different space than we were 4 years ago. So it's a great position to be in. But again, if we're constantly looking back and judging ourselves based on 4 years, I think it is that time and opportunity now to, okay, what does the future look like with regards to constant and continuous improvement?
Thank you very much, because I remember when the policy was brought in, which 4 years ago, and it used to be use of force policy, and changing even the name to have de-escalation there was a big discussion, but obviously a whole shift in the thinking. So thanks very much.
Commissioner Dideron. You're okay? Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Thank you for that report and information. The next presentation on our agenda is a report on the community response that the service received after the release of the race-based police data late last year. Please go ahead with your presentation.
And for this one, Deputy Chief Tofik will take it away, and he has some help as well.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chair. As per the agenda, we have this report coming forward by way of a motion. It came through subcommittee already. We have Acting Director Rebecca Davidson here from Strategic Services who can speak to some of it, but really the focus of this one was to talk about the progress and response from local partners and things that we've seen since we've launched our 2023 report. And of course, we're working on the 2024 one right now. which is going to be coming due in, I think, the second quarter. So I'll turn it over to Rebecca to hit the high points, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Good afternoon. There was a lot of immediate interest in our reports when they were first released. Media was for the most part positive, but they did tend to focus on the limitations. But we were very open from the start that this was a beginning of a process and that it would evolve. Since the release, we've done a number of engagements with legal and community groups. And we've also met with Dr. Magassa from Mount Royal University, who has a background in equity, diversity, and inclusion. And he has agreed to be a resource to help guide the next iteration of our reporting that is due in May. We're also in the planning stages of sector workshops, the first one being a justice sector focus. And the focus will be on creating more awareness and building connections to work towards system insights and change. And I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. Questions? I'll ask a question, Ms. Davidson. I'm just curious around, sort of the response you got from different community groups. Was it sort of the same? Did you have certain groups who were a little bit more responsive? And sort of what's the next step with those individuals? Will you go back in a year with the next report? What's the plan?
Yeah, I think the biggest message we got was thank you for doing this. I think they were glad to see that we'd followed through with a commitment and brought something forward. Obviously, some of them were not necessarily happy with the results and that we weren't able to include traffic, and we were able to explain some of the limitations around that. But I think they were appreciative of the work that we'd done, the fact that we were sharing results that weren't always necessarily positive for every community. And they just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a one and done, that they wanted to see a deeper analysis, that they wanted to see that if we could see trending, and I think a little bit more explanation. What we did receive from Dr. Magassa was to simplify some of the reporting. We talk about disparity and sort of concepts that we would use academically. And he even said with his academic hat on, that makes sense. But when I take my hat off and I put my community hat on, can you simplify that and make it more accessible to different groups? But we're still engaging with ARAC and the super board, et cetera. So we're still looking for those insights. But I'll maybe hand it over to Deputy Tawfik if he wants to say anything else.
Yeah, all good points raised by Rebecca. I think also there was an appreciation for listening to community as we were working through it. We took the feedback and included it in as far as how we communicated, even how we reported on information. And that feedback loop was good to hear and I think validated their input and participation in the process. So I think the go forward is to keep that going and not just leave it done there. But overall, that was good. I mean, it was a difficult concept to try to communicate, I think, in the media, and some maybe didn't have the time to get exposed to everything to truly understand it. We did a media special briefing, but not everyone could be there. But those tactics and strategies, I think, were very helpful in trying to get the accuracy of the message as good as we could get it.
And just sorry, one more question before I turn it over. Well, maybe it's a double question. You mentioned the advisory boards. And so what is the plan to go out to them and speak to them and share the information so then they can share it with their community members? And when you talk about sectors, you'd mentioned justice, but what other sectors are you looking at approaching?
So we are just finalizing the plan for the next report, and we will start to put the analysis together. Once we're at a stage where we've pulled some of the results together, we'll engage the same groups that we have done before. So that would include ARAC and advisory boards, et cetera. So that will be coming shortly. And I've just blanked on your other question.
Sectors.
Oh, sectors. We decided to start off with the justice sector because we know that they have information already existing in the system, particularly around corrections. We have engaged the health sector before we put the report out. We were slightly ahead of some of those sectors. So we want to get a solid understanding of how we can feed the corrections and justice information And then we would broaden it out to other sectors that maybe aren't quite as evolved in that data collection.
Thank you. Commissioner Nyson-Jordan.
Thanks. I have a comment and a question. So the comment was that, and this came up at the committee, so I just want to make sure it's shared. The commitment to the 5 whys, and why does this information, or why is there discrepancies? Why is the race-based data like this? The service is committed to try and work through those 5 whys for presentation in the next iteration in May. So we'll look forward to that. And then my question relates, and probably for Acting Director David, right? Has any other province picked up any of the methodologies? Anybody picked up the phone and said to you, hey, we want to get on here. Can you tell us how you did it? And so that we start to develop almost a community of practice here.
Great question. Halifax was one of the first ones because they are going forward with traffic related. They have a different system there. So they were very much interested in our insights. Edmonton has been very interested. I am a member of POLIS, so that's part of Statistics Canada. So I have shared information there. So they're interested in what we've done, but I think a lot of agencies are still looking towards Statistics Canada for that framework. And to be perfectly honest, not necessarily leveraging what we're putting forward. So some agencies are interested in our lessons learned. Others are maybe not quite as far ahead.
Commissioner Cornett.
And one quick follow-on to that one. Where is Stats Canada? Are they moving at all? I'm just curious if we could have an annual update on how they're doing.
We do have a meeting planned for, I believe, early next month. They have a framework document. There's one other document that they have to finalize. They are also looking to test out some of the data capture in some of the agencies that aren't doing some of that work. So they're looking for some volunteers. But they do anticipate that something will be produced by the end of this year.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for this. I know it's excellent that you have been so transparent to go back and share this information with the community and the accountability behind it. And so we look forward to the next report. This is just another touch point with the community, which I think is really important. So thank you for that. The next items on our agenda are 2 reports on crime trends. The first report covers what the investigative areas of the service are working to address, and the second report covers the trends frontline officers are addressing. Commissioners will get a chance to ask questions about both reports together after the verbal presentations. Please go ahead with these presentations.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'll start off. Good afternoon, everyone. You've got the report, and so I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll just make speak to a couple of highlights. I want to acknowledge that January is Crime Stoppers Awareness Month, and we've been partners with them, you would have seen, for 43 years, and they have helped solve over 15,000 cases, so a very critical, important partner. With respect to gun violence, major public safety concern, as we've talked about lots here at this table. These individuals out in the public, they're brazen, they're dynamic, they're dangerous. They take lots of efforts to conceal their identity. Sometimes these files are very complex. They take months, they take years. There's uncooperative witnesses. You would have seen that our year end was down 22%. And that's really as a result of coordination and suppression and mitigation strategies right across the service. I've been just doing a ton of work with respect to additional intelligence as well as enforcement. Where it's also been beneficial to us that there have been 7 major players that we've been investigating the last couple of years that are incarcerated. So that has definitely made an impact on the shootings in our city. We also have GOA funding that has helped build a strategic data integration and intelligence analytical unit And basically what they're doing is they're looking at the firearm data and turning that into strategic oversight. So I hope to bring some more information in May as to what they've found, basically the what, the where, the when, the why, the how, with respect to the gun violence in our city. In addition, many of you have had the tour of the Rapid DNA Technology Lab and our gun lab, and those two have absolutely been beneficial to expedite some of these investigations. With respect to the increase in seized firearms, you would have seen that that went up in 10%. Some of that we would attribute to growth in population and also the additional GOA funding that has supported another team where we're able to focus our efforts on that. The chair mentioned the ATT team, the auto theft team, and all of the seizures that they have made recently. I predict that we will continue to see a rise in that. We are seeing stolen vehicles on a regular basis when those individuals are apprehended with weapons in those vehicles. With respect to the homicides and domestics, you would have seen that we saw a 25% decrease last year, and some of that is attributed to what I just spoke about and what we're doing with in regards to gun violence. Although tragically, the last 2 homicides in 2024 were domestic related. We saw a 1% increase in domestic violence and somewhat with respect to the seized firearms. We would also attribute some of that to population growth and a 3% decrease in domestic conflict incidents. Some of you have seen the presentation from our domestic conflict unit. There's really 5 teams embedded in that unit, and we have over 70 partners that we actually engage with, 70, with a focus on, an intimate focus with about 5 or 6 of those partners. So lots and lots of partners throughout the city where we're all working to predict, prevent, and do investigations where we need to. We also work closely with our community resource officers and our mobilizers in all of the districts to reach out to many individuals in the city. You might recall that another function of this unit is to respond to Clare's Law, and they have the fugitive apprehension detail, and they're primarily used in situations where we need to locate high-risk domestic offenders. And earlier this month, they were assigned a particularly high-risk domestic offender who seriously assaulted his girlfriend and her 2 roommates. Ironically, this was the individual that that resulted in the Clare's Law being adopted and the legislation changing in Alberta. Specific to this incident, there required numerous resources, over 90 hours of surveillance, 2 TAC teams, two tracking warrants, just for this one individual and this domestic that had happened. Cybercrime, I'll briefly just touch on that. Many of you will see that the increase in cybercrime attacks and the victims are it's out of control, really. We see a 31% increase, but we know that that's not all that has been reported. And there's still lots of people out there that have been victim to this. It goes across all sectors as to who the victims are. And sadly, some of our investigators have seen that people have actually lost their entire life savings. So very, very impactful. And we do continue to see this grow. What we are doing and try to mitigate this, we have actually built a blockchain investigations team, and they are actually becoming subject matter experts in this area. We're also working with many partner agencies, and we're doing our best to educate the public and also in the schools as well. Thank you very much for your ongoing support, and I'll be happy to take any questions after Deputy Chief Gill.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, everyone. I've got, in addition to the crimes data reports that you already have, I've got 3 topics I'm going to cover during my comments. First is around traffic safety. I'll also touch upon downtown safety. And finally, discuss initiative we started back in, or not initiative, a meeting we had back in early January regarding our town hall. So start with traffic safety first. As you would have seen on the news today, or if you've been watching the news over the last number of months, 2024 was a super difficult year on our Calgary roadways. We had 29 fatal collisions last year, a record high in more than a decade. 18 of those involved vulnerable road users, and we define that as pedestrians or motorcyclists. Of the 13 fatal collisions involving pedestrians, Only 4 cases involved drivers failing to yield to a pedestrian with the right of way. All 4 of those resulted in charges against the driver of the motor vehicle. So we had actually more fatal accidents that involved the driver not being the person who was at fault in terms of the pedestrian fatals. Obviously, a concerning trend for the Calgary Police Service with this year-over-year increase since the pandemic. Already in January, we've had 3 fatal collisions, 2 of involving pedestrians, and a number of serious collisions as well. So we all know that this cannot continue, and we have a number of initiatives that we've taken. Obviously, traffic safety is a shared responsibility for both drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists who are all using the roadways. As Calgary grows and increases in density, so do the number of vulnerable road users and motorists. We're working with our city partners on the Safer Mobility Plan to address opportunities to improve safety of infrastructure and engineering. As always, enforcement has to play a key role in curbing behavior. We've also commenced a proactive media and social media campaign on road safety. You would have seen Inspector Paul Wozni on a press conference today talking about road safety with the media. You would have seen a lot of on our social media accounts through Facebook and Twitter as well, or X, I should say, talking about road safety and reminding our folks, our citizens and the users of roadways in Calgary to drive with care, keep their eyes on the road, pay attention, and slow down. Additionally, we've also partnered with the Alberta Sheriffs for enhanced enforcement of speeding and dangerous driving on Stoney Trail. This comes following many reports of high speed and dangerous and aggressive driving. As you'll recall, ATE, automatic traffic enforcement, was removed from Stoney in 2023. And since then, we have seen a significant increase in speeds and dangerous driving. Without the use of automated enforcement, our officers continue to put their safety at risk to stop motors on this busy roadway. And we remind all drivers to slow down and move over if you see police officers performing their duties on any roadway, especially Stoney Trail. I want to talk about downtown safety, which remains a strong focus for the Calgary Police Service. During the month of December, a geographic area near Alpha House, Victoria Park, Stampede C-Train stations, and the northwest corner of 17th Avenue McLeod Trail were identified to be locations for high volume of consistent social disorder and criminal activity. These areas were flagged as proactive priority for our teams, District 1 Patrol, Community Resource Officers, Community Engagement Response Teams, and in collaboration with our partners in Transit, Bylaw, Stampede Security, Alpha House, all pool their staff resources together to provide a high uniform presence in an effort to address social disorder activities, drug trafficking, and drug poisonings in the area. Our crime reduction officers engage with businesses in the surrounding community seeking interest and registration for the agent program. This remains a proactive priority for the district for the month of December. This remained, a proactive priority for the district in the month of November and effectively reduced the disorder at Victoria Park Stampede stations. Some of the results that we saw were in and around Alpha House in December with partners result in a 24% increase in officer-generated calls for service and a 45% decrease in reported assaults, robberies, sexual offenses, break and enters, and thefts within a 150-meter radius of Alpha House. We also registered more businesses into the agent program that I mentioned, and the proactive overt uniform deployment in the Victoria Park LRT station and surrounding community resulted in a 50% decrease in social disorder-related calls for service within a 150-meter radius of the LRT station. We have completed similar proactivities in and near the Sheldon Schumer facility and to reduce victimization of vulnerable persons in this area. And moving forward in the months of February and March, we will have a strong focus on the downtown zones, especially Stephen Avenue corridor, alleys, and nearby areas next to Stephen Avenue. Finally, January 9th, the Calgary Police Service held a town hall of sorts where we brought all of our teams together to look at all of our programs to identify what's working well for us, where are our gaps, where's opportunities for improvement, and where are opportunities that we could partner with other agencies, whether they're community agencies, government agencies, or others, to improve the services that we provide to ensure we have safer streets. We address the social disorder and calls for service that we get around social disorder, and to make our downtown core a safer place for Calgarians and those who visit our city. We started the town hall with presentations from Councillor Wong was invited, as long as with the Calgary Downtown Association Executive Director and the Calgary Land Management Corporation. And the purpose of that is sometimes as police officers, we believe we know what we're looking for. We believe we define social disorder, and it was important for others who are partners of ours in the community to see it through their lens, so we can have further conversations around making sure we don't have our own biases. And that was the purpose of bringing in 3 external individuals to speak at first, and then the rest of the day was our folks. As you know, we have a number of teams. We have our community engagement response teams that were introduced last year. 4 were introduced in April, 4 were introduced in September. We have the SMART program in our arrest processing section that was introduced a couple of years ago. We have the Action Table Calgary. We have our partners in Bylaw, Transit, C911. We have our high system users and encampment teams. All those teams are working really hard. They're working to address all of the social disorder and to assist vulnerable Calgarians on a daily basis. The goal was to make sure that we are coordinated, we're working collaboratively, and to address any gaps that we may have as we continue to do this important work in 2025. Go ahead, Chief.
Just a super quick add-on, that's really important when we talk about this sort of thing. I know the commission would have read the December and year-end report, which basically highlights the fact that both property and violent crime in all categories, with the exception of commercial robberies, is down. So statistically, the city is becoming a safer city, but at the same time, in perception surveys and talking to people and partners like this, we're not necessarily seeing that. So part of what Deputy Gill's talking about is just an internal sort of alignment and work to make sure, with all the investments into the system, certainly that are intended to deal with disorder and some of the challenges around social issues, that we're aligned and coordinated. Clearly, if people aren't feeling safe in the downtown and other public spaces like that, there's more communication, more coordination, and more work to do. But again, statistically and by the numbers, we're making some pretty good progress, and the city is becoming statistically safer. So we've got the statistical reality, and then we've got the perceptual reality, which are not aligned. But I think the reality is perception is the reality. So more work to do on this, but I just want to highlight the difference between what we're seeing in the sort of the subjective perceptions versus what the numbers are showing us.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Deputy Chief McClellan and Deputy Chief Gill, for those reports. Commissioner Ogle.
Yeah, really good. And again, I'll sound like a broken record, but I only see a couple of charts that use per capita data. The city is growing all the time, and I think it'd be great to better enhance that messaging, to have more data that shows per capita, because the numbers not only down on a per capita basis are going to be lower. They just I took grade 12 math. I did.
I believe you.
I have one question for Deputy McClellan. And I probably could have looked back at prior reports. Is the trend, or is the gun crime that's requisite to organized crime at 31%, is that kind of flat? Is that up or down? Like, where are we seeing more organized crime, or are we about the same or less?
We've seen that it's been pretty well flat, but we'll continue to monitor that and to continue to strategize. As I said, that team that I mentioned earlier, they're going to come up with some great information to help us go forward in the future, but it's remained fairly flat.
Yeah, I'd just like to suggest that this as the city go, it just gets a bigger haven for more organized crime as it gets bigger and bigger. And we need to be really diligent and vigilant about this because, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's just reminder.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to your service members back in January 9th. At the time, we talked about perception. And thank you, Chief, for recognizing the difference between perception and statistics. The question I'm wondering, only because in the last week or so, I've been engaged with more constituents. It's not so much the numbers and not just the perception, but the severity. As an example, Stephen Avenue Mall, a bar patron or a bar operation called me while I was working at 10 o'clock at night and said, "Counselor, help me." And they couldn't get through for whatever reason. They couldn't get through the service. Help me. I said, "What's your situation?" And the situation was they have people, confronting them at the doors, but they're finding these people confronting them at the doors are much more severe. They can't deal with them. They can't get them out the doors. And they're literally pushing their patrons to the back of the bar now because they can't deal with that person in there. I guess my question, are you observing that the offenses are much more severe, as opposed to just the numbers?
I would say depends how you define severe. Like in terms of the charges, it's not reflected in there, but I think I maybe use the word shocking. So to describe some of the behavior that you're talking about, like the reason why the bump or the increase in commercial robberies is part to do with a little bit of a spike in cannabis stores and pharmacies, but that actually wasn't the whole story. What's happening is we're getting shoplifting offenses in like regular stores around the city, where as soon as store, whether it be security or employees go to intervene, it escalates right away to the point where people are making threats, they're pulling out bear spray or whatever it might be, and we're seeing assaults, and that's where those are going and turning into robberies. And that's what's actually driving that. So we had some discussions here. I was in meetings, provincial meetings here earlier this week with the prosecution service, and just talking about the need to make sure that we all understand that we're prioritizing the prosecution and the court time around violent crime. But I think there's also been, the reality is that there's a lot of people who are displaying abhorrent behavior and threatening and escalating right away. And there maybe isn't enough consequences for those things. So the service hasn't changed its approach to those types of situations. And certainly if someone's got a weapon or whatever, those are fairly serious charges. But if you get somebody just acting out in the licensed premises that you're talking about there, a lot of times that may not go to charges. And there's some individuals who begin to behave in ways in public, and they can act like that in front of a lot of people over the course of a day. And I think these are the types of behaviors as well that we're seeing that are making people feel uncomfortable, is what we're hearing. So I think some of the behavior is more abhorrent and more shocking. And when you see it in public places where we didn't before, I think that is something that makes the public quite uneasy, and understandably so.
Thank you for that. I guess the question then becomes, how do we change the rules of engagement? When they become that much more, shocking to people. How do we change the rule of engagement for service, our social members out there, as well as our bar owners and patrons like that? How do we change?
Well, for starters, for me, you mentioned that for whatever reason, the individuals involved weren't able to get through. Like, that's definitely a problem. I think there's, maybe for a little while, people weren't calling and reporting that type of behavior. I think we should be, for sure. I think at a certain point, the standard that you walk past or accept is the one you begin to tolerate, and we start to normalize that type of thing. I think we will see some improvement here in the discussions on the 9th. Certainly the CERT teams in those locations are working with individuals. The action table is prioritizing people who are dealing with the high systems users, who are dealing with over and over again. So to some extent, these individuals that are behaving like that, we've got resources that will lock onto that, and we'll be looking at them proactively as well. So I think we'll be dealing with those people as well. But I just think one of the big things is we can't normalize the behavior. in our public spaces. We have to report it. We have to call the police. And then that was the purpose of the discussion that we had, is to say, when we get called, we have to go there and we have to make sure that we're doing our part. Officers are frustrated at times because they feel that maybe cases aren't prosecuted or they don't go ahead, but we don't control the whole system. We can advocate across the system, but we have to do our part so that we don't become the problem. So certainly I think that's a big piece. We all have a role to play with it. And I think the big thing is we don't want to normalize it in our public spaces. That's the big one.
Commissioner Tenge.
Commissioner Hansen was just saying what I was going to say. I think there's a difference between crime statistics and crime reporting. As Commissioner Hansen had just said to me, a lot of people just simply don't report crimes anymore. But I still want to congratulate the fact that some of the reportable crimes, such as break and enters, where insurance companies are going to be involved, are down, car thefts are down, or insurance companies. These are things that we know are absolutely going to be reported. So that is good news. I want to come and again, I think surveys moving forward, we really want to focus on, are you actually reporting crime? And how many are not reporting crime? Certainly nobody reports break-ins of vehicles because that's just not going to go anywhere. And there's other crimes, including assaults on streets and stuff that aren't reported. I'd like to come back, Deputy Gill, what you were talking about Stephen Avenue. You mentioned, and it's in the report, 70% increase in October, significant mobilization by the Force Service, which was awesome. But you also mentioned some statistics of reductions after that, which isn't here. Can you repeat that for me again?
I will try. That's the numbers you're looking for, Commissioner. So the numbers we talked about was a in and around Alpha House in December, the work that we did with our partners, 24% increase in officer generated calls for service and a 45% decrease in reported robberies, assaults, sexual offenses, break and enters, and thefts within that area.
Thank you. So with regards, did we find that when we had that increase at Stephen Avenue, we put all this time in, including trying to talk to our community partners about, hey, like we can't be handing, I don't know what you guys conversed about, but did we see a reduction in calls and disorder in November and December by adding in these services and this action?
So it's certainly in statistics, you have to look at that. We did have a reduction in calls for service. Now, you could debate if that is because people are just not choosing to call the Calgary Police Service. We saw a number of reduction in calls, but an increase in calls for service that are officer generated. Obviously, when we have more officers present observing this behavior and taking that action, that results in a call for service that is officer generated versus coming in from the public. So certainly we saw a number of that. I also think it's fair to say that we had a concept of what our community engagement response teams were going to be. We started our first 4 teams in April of last year, and then our second teams in September. So we have 8 months and 4 months respectively of data and information and lived experience of our officers of what's working, what's not working. And that's one of the things that we're looking at. And now with that experience now and what we planned in spring of 2024, what do we need to modify for this year in 2025 to make sure that we're maximizing those resources and we're also making a difference in terms of social disorder in and around downtown?
So then this goes to my question. It took me a while. Hey, sorry. Are we planning to continue? So are we going to continue everything that is mentioned here of our downtown street engagement teams being more engaged, having more of a police presence in the downtown? Is that the plan? And what exactly would that look like? Is that more officered, more CERT? So that's question A. And then question B, what was the response when the CRO teams mentioned, hey, there's social agencies that are handing out dinners and morning and meals and everything on Stephen Avenue. Did that change?
Short answer is yes to your last question. It did change. And I would say this, I think it's fair to say the intentions were good, results did not bear what we wanted. As we're trying to make particularly Stephen Avenue a pedestrian friendly, a business friendly area, when we have social agencies providing food and water and other amenities to our vulnerable population, that actually allows them to stay there and remain there versus going to one of the facilities throughout the city where they could get food, they could get water, they could get shelter, they could get warmth. It incentivized them to stay there. So it was re-engaging and collaborating with our social agency partners in terms of their intentions were good, but what they were doing wasn't benefiting the overall plan. Getting back to your initial question, those enforcement activities, those proactive activities, those officer presence activities are definitely going to continue. We're going to enhance them as much as we can. I've had conversations with my partners at the City of Calgary in their peace officer program and their bylaw program to ensure that we can collaborate more and continue. We collaborate well now, but there's opportunities for improvement. They've introduced a number of officers into their ranks over the last year. You would have seen their graduation ceremonies as well. So as those officers get trained and get more familiar with their duties, and in collaboration with the evolution of our community engagement response teams that we introduced last year, the collaborative effort will result in more officer presence and more activity in terms of officer generated work. Hopefully I answered your question.
Commissioner Cornett.
Hi there. I think I have two pretty short questions. Well, I'm just curious, who funds Crime Stoppers? I mean, it sounds like they've done an amazing job supporting, but who funds that? Anybody else?
So it's a bit of a mixed bag. There's some funding that had come from the province. I'm not sure if that was ongoing, but they're a nonprofit as well, so they'll raise funds as well. And yes, they have done an amazing job.
Yeah, you'd hate to lose them as a partner. And the second one is around the sheriffs and if they're helping with speeding and issues of traffic on Stony Trail and others. Do they, are they governed by the same policies? Do they have the same training? I mean, as the CPS does, so they're essentially the same, or are there differences between the two?
So a lot the same. The sheriffs are peace officers and they have appointments that allow them to stop vehicles, and they have all of the equipment and training and everything to enforce provincial statutes. I don't know, and I don't know, Deputy Gill, if you know, in the short time that the arrangements have been in place, how much time they've been able to spend. The reality of it is if you're a police officer in the province, you have jurisdiction to write tickets and enforce the laws anywhere in the province. So technically I could be driving in Edmonton and I could issue a ticket in Edmonton if I see a violation. Practically speaking, we generally don't do that because if you do that and the violation is disputed, the court is in Edmonton and that type of thing. So with the sheriffs, they move around the province. They have a south team and a north team that deploy sheriffs. And so really what's happening there is we've said, as you come through Calgary or you're around Calgary, feel free to be able to do some enforcement on Stony Trail and the major thoroughfares as well. I think it doesn't hurt to have as much, presence and people seeing, people being pulled over and enforcement going on. So, but I'm not sure, Deputy Gill, do you know if they've been able to spend much time thus far?
They have, Chief. They commenced the work on Stony Trail on the 14th of January, and we are going to get bi-weekly reports. So the next one's coming up next Monday to see exactly how much time they've spent. But they will work in teams and they will cover days and evenings and weekends and night shifts as well to a certain hour. So we will have officer presence. I just don't have any of the metrics or stats to provide you at this point, Commissioner, in the sense that I won't have them until next Monday.
I'm just curious going forward just to see how much time they do spend to help us out. Thanks.
We'll definitely be tracking that so we could report on it.
Commissioner Nyson-Jordan.
Thanks. I have one question for Deputy Gill and one question for Deputy McClellan. And this follows along Commissioner Tangay's question related to the downtown area. I'm hoping that we're going to be following, we've identified this particular area. We've got our minus 45%. How much of it has actually moved to another site that may be just outside that collection zone. So that's my question for you. And then the second question relates to cybercrime. Your files increased significantly, 31% or something related to that, which is only from 28 to 43. There are hundreds, if not thousands of them out there. What is our plan to help deal with the cybercrime? And I assume that we have talked about it nationally. We've talked about this before, but I'm just concerned that we're already in the $45 million range, and we have 1.5 million people who are constantly on those emails, and we need a better plan in terms of how we can deal with the cybercrime issue. So if you could comment on that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Commissioner, to your question, very quickly, you're 100% right. The work that we do does not resolve all the problems. It does cause displacement of these individuals to certain areas. Director Davidson has advised that that is something we are tracking and we can track, so we'll be able to track that moving forward. And I think enforcement leads to certain activities, and then we had the Urban Crime Initiative where we work with our partners and a bylaw ticket has an opportunity for them to go to community court and get the services that they require. We're also working with our partners, as you would have had the presentation last year with Kay Choi and Superintendent O'Brien gave, in terms of how we can collaborate within the system, within probation, within prosecutions, within the police, to get people into the treatments and to provide them the supports that they require. So short answer is displacement does occur, but it also continues to provide us opportunity to engage with individuals and try to get them the help that they seek.
Thanks, Commissioner, for your question. So you're absolutely correct. As I said, this will only continue to increase, and we have only minimal resources that we're able to attack this with what we have. As I shared, we're becoming almost subject matter experts as much as we can. We're looking at training. In fact, I do have an overall cyber plan that has been sent to me, and we're just actually going through it. And I know the chief has some comments, and Deputy Daly also has some comments. But we're working with partners. We're doing as much as we can with respect to prevention, the public piece, the media piece, warnings. When we find out what the scam of the day is, or the scam of the week, the scam of the month, we're in the media, we're sharing that. We're just trying to tell people to be as vigilant as they can. But some of these people they're very technical, suave, and they're very professional, and they suck people in super quick, as we've learned. And as I said earlier, people have lost their life savings. So it's fluid for sure. We're doing what we can with the resources that we have. As I said, I do have a plan before me. Maybe Corey could speak about that. He used to be in the area. So Deputy Daly.
Thank you, Deputy McClellan. And it's a great question. I know in 2013, when the official cybercrime program in the service was rolled out, we've been combating this ever since. And so one of the things that we've done throughout the years is citizens academies and business academies. As many of you know, in business sectors, large businesses have programs, robust programs to this, probably not still resourced well enough. And there's financial impacts to business that report. So coming to the police, having official reports on file, there's major impacts to a business, to the financial bottom line to do that. So they adjust for that accordingly. It's the small to medium-sized businesses that don't have those resources, but also will have the same impacts on if they report, rather than say paying a ransom or dealing with the problem internally themselves. Once they do that, then they're going to have to, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of an impact to them for mail outs under freedom of information, stuff like that. So there's lots of barriers to reporting from the aspect of damage in a business aspect. Embarrassment's probably the biggest reason for on a personal reason of victimization, if it's fraud related or a romance scam or something like that. And there's a big perception that police can't actually reach out and touch the offender. That's largely correct, because geographically they're not here. So can we actually get them? But part of the mission is disrupting and dismantling those organized crime entities out there to prevent. So prevention is probably our biggest key. People don't think that the police have or can reach out and touch and get justice, and the embarrassment factor is too high to come forward with it. That's what we've seen. I think it's 1 in 5 businesses actually come forward with it. And again, the larger infrastructure you have to deal with it yourself, it's a lot less arduous than coming to law enforcement. We're going to want your information, internal access to your company secrets, if you will. and then are going to share that probably internationally to actually have any attribution to the offenders on this. So it's clearly a complex issue, but it is education, consistent education and prevention. And I'll speak quite frankly, Calgary cybercrime assets and program are world-class with response to with what we can actually respond to. If people and businesses allow us, the global network and reach that we have for attribution is there. We just might not see it in Calgary, but we will see it in other geographic locations in the world in maybe 3 to 5 years from now, because some of these operations are large, multinational, transnational, with law enforcement response. So it's going to take a long time for them to maybe charge in Belgium or in Russia or wherever that might happen. And so it's complex, but hopefully that helps.
Just at a macro level, for those who might not be aware, so the building up the capability for cyber in the province is actually on the mandate letter for the public safety minister. So at the meetings that I came from earlier this week, there we had some discussion around, and there was actually a proposal approved for a coordinating mechanism to actually go into the Alberta law enforcement response team. So that should actually be something that could happen before the end of the year. It's not, I think when we started talking about this from the Calgary perspective, because we got into this world in about 2013 and we were early adopters, we see a world where maybe we get to like a provincial cyber lab type thing so we can coordinate and capitalize on things like equipment and not be, buying equipment in Calgary that we're buying in Edmonton as well type thing, like a true coordination that is not just municipality by municipality. I think we're a little ways from there just yet, but to the point, they will be doing a bit of an inventory to see what is the capability in each of the services. And so us, the RCMP, obviously have strong capability. Edmonton has strong capability, but there are some communities in the province who actually have like zero capability around cyber. So it's just level setting. I think Calgarians can be very pleased with the fact that they do have access to a lot of tools and a lot of capability right now. We will help and inform some of the work that's done to get everybody kind of level set. And then I think we'll go forward. It'll be a while before I think we see something along the lines of a provincial lab, but I think starting with coordination and understanding what the capabilities are and where the gaps are is going to be important. And I think to Corey's point, a lot of it is going to be around that prevention piece, because we can never, as Katie said, it goes up and up and up. And so we can't, catch and punish everybody around the world, but we actually have to increase digital hygiene. And that's where programs like the work done at the Youth Link and that type of thing is super important for students going through and stuff. So the next generation may not be as vulnerable to these types of scams and stuff as we are. So that's part of the work that's being done and figuring out what's all available and bringing it to bear for everybody and not just having it in silos.
Commissioner Dideron.
This is for Deputy Joe. I just want to go back to the enforcement on the Stony Tree with the sheriff. Who collect the revenue for enforcement on the Stony Tree right now?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, who is responsible for enforcement on Stony Tree right now?
Yeah, for who is collecting the revenue?
Oh, collecting?
Yes.
Our traffic services team. They're working in collaboration with the Alberta Sheriffs. Okay. So we will collect. We are Inspector Wozniak and his team. We have two data analysts that work in traffic services, so they're collating and collecting all that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment and a couple of questions. So first of all, thank you so much for that the road safety. I did hear some of those pieces over the last couple of days. For someone who drives Deerfoot every day, it's a little crazy out there. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing the education around it. A couple of questions, I think, primarily for Deputy Chief Gill to start. Around the downtown safety work and the group that was brought together, what are the next steps now? Is this something that's ongoing to bring folks back together to talk again, or does everybody sort of have their assignments to go out and do over the next little while?
So the ongoing work right now is more analytical work and working with our folks in strategic comms. So now that we know what we have, what the issues are that our folks are seeing practically, what are gaps, what are opportunities for further engagement. we're going to create a document that's going to be a consistent approach of how we're going to essentially a 2025 strategy for safe public spaces in Calgary. And that's going to be our roadmap for how we're going to do our work. After that, we're going to go and collaborate further with our community partners and associations in the downtown in terms of making sure we're meeting their needs and working in collaboration with them along with all of our community partners. So this is step one of a multi-step approach that we're going to take this spring to build out and revise and refine our 2025 strategy.
So do you anticipate the commission would see that sort of that roadmap or strategy sort of May, June?
That would be fair
Okay.
timeline, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question I had, and please forgive my ignorance, you touched on this a little bit, Deputy Chief Gill. You talked about making better things available in the downtown in terms of housing and food and all that, because then it doesn't necessarily, I guess, spread into the suburbs for lack of a better term. So have you seen in other cities across the country or in the US where if the downtown was doing well and had these systems or, housing in place or crime under control a little better, that it affected the suburbs and so the crime wasn't necessarily spreading into other areas?
That is a good research question, Chair, that you're asking me, that I have not done that depth of level of research, but we do look at what's working and what's not working with our major partners. The chief sits on a major city chiefs association. A lot of that information is shared. We get some academia results. We work a lot with Director Davidson's team. And just our lived experience. So our folks are always collaborating with our partner agencies across the country and looking at what's happening in other cities across North America. So we are learning from their experiences in addition to ours of what works, what's not working, and where we can focus our efforts.
Director Davidson.
I love that research question. Yeah, we will have a look at that. I think it's really interesting, and it would be interesting to see how it ripples out and where it goes. So yes, thank you for that direction.
Thanks. I don't want to create more work, but if you do come across it, it'd be interesting for us to see if changes here make changes elsewhere. So thank you. And then my last question for the chief is around, you spoke about perception and statistics. And so I'm curious, Chief, how do we sort of change that messaging that's out there? And is the service looking at doing any sort of communications around the fact that, people's perceptions don't exactly match up to what you're seeing? Now, assuming that not everyone's reporting crime either, I understand that, but is there any future plans around that?
So yeah, great point. So part of what I'd asked Deputy Gill to do in the January 9th meeting was around going back and talking about that very issue, the fact that we've got a gap or a delta between how people are feeling and what the numbers are telling us. So you're like Commissioner Tangay's comments about the unreported crime, like that's a very valid piece. But it's interesting when we look at the numbers that we're comparing year over year, I would imagine it would be similarly unreported crime in all of that. So at least we're comparing probably as the best data we have to the best data we have from year to year. So the trending, even though the numbers might not be perfect, the trending is probably something valid, should be anyways. But I think that it's obviously we're not telling that story enough. So part of what Deputy Gill's talking about in terms of polling our people to say, and remember, those CERT teams, half of those CERT teams have only been out there for a very short time. So we realize, we're pulling you in. For some of you, this is a very early discussion. And some of you may not sort of have turned your mind yet to some of the other aspects of the system. But if you think about it, we've got the CERT teams, we've got the action table, we've got the NAV center, we've got the SMART program. There's a lot going on. We're working on compassionate intervention now with the province. So there's a lot been introduced into the system, but now it's about having the ability to stand back a little bit and say, okay, how well is it coordinated? what's working, what isn't, where are the gaps we're still seeing, because I think there's probably still gaps. The folks that are out there dealing with individuals that are struggling on the front line are going to be best placed to see it. So, you know, we hear early on from the navigation center, people are connecting, so that's excellent. People are getting things like the outputs, I would say, or people are actually getting like identification and things that you would need to be able to access other programs and systems. But the question is, I don't know if we know yet, are they? You know what I mean? Like, so it's early days in terms of what's happening with these investments, but I think we have to stay really close to where the gaps are and what's complementary and what's maybe not, and be prepared to make adjustments. But the telling of the story, part of to get back to the Nabi, your question, the telling of the story as part of the comms plan is a very big part of what we're trying to do here as we go into the spring, because clearly the story we told last year didn't resonate the way that it needed to. So that's a huge part of it for sure.
Great. Thank you both. We look forward to seeing the story come out, because it's very important. I'm just going to go to Commissioner Wong, and then I do need to make a motion regarding collecting the data on the sheriffs. So I'll just go to you, and then we'll go back to the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Last fall, we opened up the downtown safety hub reporting station. Any updates in terms of trends you're seeing, people coming in, and success of that?
Great question, Councillor. I don't have any of that information in front of me now, but I'd happy to come back next CBC and provide that information.
Sorry, Commissioner Wong, can we put that into a motion then, please? What you just asked for?
Sure. Would you like me to quote it?
Yes.
Okay.
or make it shorter.
Thank
and
you.
then Amber can put that together for us.
Sure. That the Police Services brings forward a status update on the downtown safety, whatever you call it, and trends. Thank you.
Commissioner, just for clarity, is it the reporting center you're talking about? Because
Yes.
we closed the Stephen Avenue Safety Hub.
No, the reporting center, the one on 6th Avenue.
The new, yeah, okay.
Thank
And
you.
so that's just been open a short time, but we can certainly put together what we have for sure. Thank you.
So while we're getting that motion together, we'll go to Commissioner Tangay.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I actually don't disagree that over the years we should have similar, but it's also human nature that if the same thing keeps happening and there's not a lot of response that can be done about it, reporting's gonna cut down. And the exact opposite. I mean, mental health is a perfect example. When we break down stigma, we see massive increases in reporting of mental illness. Is it a change in our overall epidemiology? Probably not. Here, same thing. If we see a reduction, are we actually seeing a reduction in crime, or are we seeing a reduction in reporting? It's hard to say. That's why I like the idea that we're seeing, you know, some crime that's always going to be reported for insurance purposes. It's guaranteed almost. That's something that we can really stick a feather into it. So, you know, I think it's just a matter of human nature is going to reduce the amount, and how do we encourage increasing in reporting? And we've talked about this. The online reporting isn't that easy to do. There's some issues there. I don't want to make a motion because I'm waiting for you guys to surprise me one day, but I would really like to see almost a campaign to please report and let us know. It's probably not going to hurt budgets either to say, hey, look, crime isn't maybe coming down the way we think it is. There is no question the exact data of we see a significant reduction in calls for service, an increase from officer calls because we were there. There's a lot of data on, you know, moving crime outside of the downtown by changing downtown. A lot of downtown cities in the US that look really nice, but you go a few blocks south where their hospital and social services are, and that's where it all is. They just focus on their economy and the fact that, you know, tourism is a major part. They don't want people seeing that. So when you go downtown Boston, it looks amazing. When you go down to Mass Gen, it maybe doesn't look quite as amazing, and some of the other public hospitals. So Anyways, there's some great stats out there and we can chat about that later, but I would like to see some sort of movement towards how do we improve reporting and how do we encourage people to continue to do so.
So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I struggle with the data piece because, of course, when we put the CERT teams down there, and we retooled the DSET teams and that sort of thing, you put additional resources, you're going to have more data. You're going to generate more data. So to what extent can you now compare that to last year? We see when we focus down there, we get, and we see it over and over again, we will get more officer generated calls, and the public generated calls will go down. And that makes sense, right? Because the officers are down there, people see them, the officers are actually dealing with it proactively, people don't have to call. So the numbers go down. So I actually think that's good. So when we see those officer generated numbers up, that's good also. Yeah, I struggle with that very thing for all the reasons that you said. There's so many things happening right now that would impact potentially the data. And how do we encourage people? I think that's part of the communication piece that we're talking about. And some of that's probably face-to-face, like Deputy Gill mentioned, that part of what's happening is the CERT teams and the CROs are going out to businesses and having the discussions with the individuals that Councillor Wong was referring to and saying, please do report that to us. And I think that, emphasis, the fact that we do want to know when we will do something about it will help people to do that. So I think some of that is done that way, and just more and more engagement in those sensitive areas.
I think it was clear from research up in Edmonton when we put, and not based on Edmonton, just a certain commissioner that used to be in Edmonton, who did some great data sets on police presence reduces crime in that area and improves sense of safety. So I am hoping that everything that is happening in the downtown, our community surveys are going to give us the right data. And if we see an improvement in belief in safety and feeling of safety, then we know that Calgary Police Services is truly succeeding. So.
Thank you. Amber, you have the motion. Just a tad bigger. Thank you. So moved and seconded that the service provide a status update and trends on visitations to the downtown reporting station, and that this report be included in the May Calgary Police Commission Bureau of Community Policing monthly crime and community safety update. Is that correct, Councillor Wong? Good.
Chair, if I could provide maybe just in terms of what we call it, it's actually the CPS community counter and the downtown safety hub. So we're one of the partners that's actually in the hub. We have bylaw and other agencies that are there. So CPS has a community counter there, and the hub actually is with other agencies in the city of Calgary.
Commissioner Wong is moving that. Is there a second? Commissioner Nyson Jordan. Any other discussion around this motion? Okay. All in favor? Great. Thank you. And then the second motion, I can't make it. So Executive Director Lund is going to do it for me.
No, so I take over as chair, and now you can make a motion.
Oh, okay. Okay. Moved and seconded to direct the service to start including in the Bureau of Community Policing monthly crime and community safety update, estimate of the amount of traffic enforcement being provided by the sheriffs on Stony Trail. So can I just ask a clarification? Are they just doing traffic enforcement on Stony, or are they doing it throughout the city as well?
Currently just on Stony Trail.
Only on Stony. Okay, then that's fine. So I'll move that. Second, Commissioner Mallon, any discussion around that? And estimate. Corrected. And I want to comment that Commissioner Cornett actually brought this up originally, so I was just kind of stealing her idea too. So any other comments around that? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Great, motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for all those wonderful questions, and thank you, Service, for your patience in answering them and providing information and the information that is going to come in the future. Thank you for that. Next on our agenda are written reports from commissioners who represent our commission on various external associations and committees. There are no presentations for these reports, but do commissioners have any questions for any of the representatives? Okay. Thank you. That is the end of presentation and reports today. Typically, we would now invite public guests who registered to speak to do so. However, no one has registered to speak at today's meeting. I would like to take the time to thank everyone that sent us written submissions prior to this meeting. They have been provided to everyone on the commission as part of the meeting materials, and we appreciate you taking the time to write and share your insights. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So we will now adjourn for the public portion of this month's commission meeting. Thank you to everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great evening. Chief Neufeld and I will move to the podium shortly, where we will be available to answer questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to stay and watch our media availability, but only recognized members of the media will be able to participate. For commissioners and members of the service participating in the in-camera portion of our meeting, we will take a break before continuing. Please keep this room quiet until the media availability is finished. And if you are joining remotely, please remember to rejoin us using the in-camera link. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the members of the media. Just a reminder to please make sure you have your media outlet name in your Zoom name and raise your hand if you'd like to ask any questions. If we can get the room quiet, please, then we'll begin our media availability. And so far we have no hands up. So if there are any questions out there, this is your opportunity to raise your hand. There we go. We have CBC. I'll give you the ability to speak. You should be able to ask your question now.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
You can, yes.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to ask about the cybercrime numbers. Can you speak to what the most common types of cybercrimes you saw reported last year?
I would say, again, just going from memory, we'd see the majority of those would be frauds, like online frauds are huge. And then also we've seen really big increases in cryptocurrency scams as well. So I would say fraud and cryptocurrency would be the big two.
Thanks. And would you be able to tell me also roughly, like, individuals versus businesses, where are you seeing most of those cases?
So the majority of the cases that we see are coming from individuals. We do know from reports in the media and that sort of thing that there are businesses that get targeted with ransomware and these types of things. And so some of those get reported and some don't for valid reasons. So again, if we looked at our numbers, the majority would actually be from individuals and not from businesses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have no other hands up, so I'll just do one last call. And seeing none, that concludes our media availability. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today.